Hello and welcome to the video. In this one, I'm going to do a quick tour of the demo site of Oats. You can find it right here next to the documentation menu on the Oats website. Link is in the description. By the way, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, check out the previous video. That will give you context. So we are currently on the demo page. On the left side, you will find a panel similar to a file explorer in an IDE. In the middle, you will see the contents of whatever you open from the left side panel. The left side panel is split into two parts, input and output. In the input section, you will be able to configure Oats and see how the configuration looks like in code. Let's start with configuration. The configuration panel is split into four sections: reader, validator, generator, and writer. The reader section determines how your input OpenAPI document or documents are read. You can switch between providing an external document using a URI or just editing it inline. We are currently loading a remote document. For this, we can set the expected protocol and language. In the URI field, you can either choose from the documents I use for testing, or you can provide an external URI as well. You can also load the contents of this URI into an inline editor. This allows you to make quick changes to it and see how that affects the generated outputs. In the validator section, you can choose if the validator that is responsible for semantically validating the output of the reader step should be used or not. In the generator section, you can configure what exactly do you want to generate. Oats uses autonomous code generators, focusing on doing one thing. You can either pick and choose specific generators. In code, you could even provide your own custom generators. Or you can use a preset, which is a bundle of individual generators. You can also configure here the expected location of the generated outputs in the file system. In code, you can do even more. You can configure the file path and name for each generated artifact, but this would be really hard to expose on a UI in a sensible way, so you see simplified configuration here. In the writer section, you can configure what you want to do with the generated output. You can choose to write it on the disk or just return it as in-memory representation. Changing this has no effect on the demo page as it has no access to our real file system. You can set formatting options, for which Oats supports prettier by default, but you can obviously provide your own formatter as well. Finally, you can also add leading and trailing comments for each generated file, which can be useful for warning your team not to edit generated files by hand, or disabling or enabling linter rules. Below configuration, you can find generate.ts. Oats uses a similar configuration philosophy to Webpack, meaning all configuration is code. Generate.ts shows the annotated source code mirroring your settings in the configuration panel, meaning with this code you'll be able to do locally what you see here on the demo page. Below that is package.json that has the dependencies that you will need. The dev dependencies are needed to make generate.ts run, and dependencies are libraries that the generated code will need at runtime. These are also changing based on configuration. These are great resources to get started with Oats, and you can just set up your Oats configuration with a few clicks and copy-paste generate.ts and the dependencies from package.json into your project. In the output section, you will see a virtual folder structure of the generated content. In case any issues occurred during code generation, you'll see them here too. Let's check out a simple example. I'm going back to configuration, to the reader section, and I'm changing the URI to the pet store sample, which is a variant of the common kitchen sink OpenAPI example that you can find everywhere on the internet. Now, since I want to show something simple, in the generator section, I'm going to swap to individual generators, and I'm going to pick just types. This will just generate static typings from the reusable JSON schemas in our pet store OpenAPI document. And in the writer section, I'm going to tweak formatting options, as I prefer not to have semicolons. Then I'm going to add the comment that will appear in the beginning of each generated file, warning us the file is indeed generated and we shouldn't edit it by hand. We see a single types folder with 3 files in it. These are the static typings based on the pet store OpenAPI document. Our formatting preference is respected, we don't have any semicolons, and we also have that comment in each file. Above the files, we'll find a few info level issues that let us know that some of the properties in the document are unexpected. This is nothing serious, just lets us know that Oats will not do anything based on these properties. Looking at generate.ts, you'll see how you can get this result yourself locally. And in package.json, you'll find all the necessary dependencies. A word of warning here. While I absolutely recommend initially copy-pasting generate.ts and the dependencies from package.json, copy-pasting the generator outputs from this demo page is not something I would do, as in your case your OpenAPI input is probably continuously changing. It's much better to set up oats in your project with the help of the resources available here and generate with your preferred settings locally whenever the input OpenAPI document changes. So that was it for this video. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, or anything you'd like to share, please do so in the comments or on the discussion page on GitHub. Again, link is in the description. Thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next video, where we actually start building stuff with oats.